welcome and thank you for joining us for today's Appraisal Buzzcast. Let me bring in Hal, our host, Hal Humphreys, and we'll have a quick discussion. Hey, Hal, it's nice to see you.
Hi, Jim. It's good to see you as always.
The audience doesn't know this because they come out every week, but we've had a bit of a hiatus and we're back together, so it's good to see your face and be back at this.
Very happy to be here. And I will say without hesitation that personal time off is critically important.
Absolutely. Well, I had a blast. Well, let's bring in our guest today. We're really excited for Nathan Brannen from Restb.ai. Nathan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jim. Happy to be here.
Hal, I'll hand it over to you and we'll get started.
That sounds great. Nathan, let me just ask you, this notion of AI, it is fraught with a lot of things, but how did you get into the AI space?
Whew. So I, when I graduated college over a decade ago, I, like most people, had not a great idea of what I wanted to do, but I liked problem solving. I liked building things. So I studied engineering and started working on building products. At the time, it was physical products, and I remember being frustrated with how long it took to get supplies for things to be shipped, and I just felt like things weren't moving as quick as I'd like, and had the opportunity to switch over more into software, which quickly turned into AI. And for over 10 years, I've really been living in that space. And I think what I like most about it is just how quickly it's changing. I mean, if you follow the news, it seems like every few months there's something new that has implications, and that part really excites me.
That's awesome. Well, let me ask you this. So AI, that makes sense. You're an engineer. How did you end up in the valuation space?
So from a company perspective, we started much more in the MLS space, and we're doing a lot to extract all this information out of properties to better understand what could be pulled out, what that actually meant, where that could fit in. And while that was maybe our main market, we have always gotten requests from people in different verticals of real estate, and also just people all over the world. So there was never a lack of things for us to kind of follow down that path and see where it led. I think while the iBuying craze really got kicked off, that's when we started looking into, okay, how can this play into valuations? And that led us to start experimenting with condition and quality and whether those things could be understood by AI and whether that could be leveraged. And then it was a very natural extension looking over into the appraiser world of saying, hey, there's all this data that needs to be collected. Is there a way where we can help those processes that exist to just deal with the hundreds of data points that are needed to be collected and utilized in an appraisal or in a valuation, or as I've now learned, the many different types of things that are done in the term a property valuation.
I love it. Well, let's do a real quick shout out to one of our sponsors, and we'll come back in just a minute.
Since 1978, LIA Administrators and Insurance Services has been offering E&O insurance to valuation professionals. LIA applies superior customer service, exceptional liability education from Peter Christensen, and unparalleled claim defense managed by Claudia Gaglioni. LIA offers errors and omissions, commercial bonds, general liability, cyber liability, and real estate agents and brokers E&O. Visit liability.com or call 800-334-0652.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Hal Humphreys. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm here with Nathan Brannen. Nathan, we're talking about AI and valuations. You've got a product called Computer Vision. What is that?
So it's a scary sounding word, but it's at its simplest, is a type of AI that is intended to analyze imagery or digital content in the similar way to how a human would look at it. So you train it to understand the contents of an image, and it's able to learn and understand and return things in a similar way to a human who would be looking at that image could say, hey, that's of a kitchen, there's hardwood floors, etc.
Okay. And how do you envision this particular AI helping out with appraisers?
So I think if you look at the appraisal process, there's a couple different phases. On one hand, you have to go visit a property, or with some of the changes in appraisal modernization, get data collected about a property. And obviously, if you're at a property, there's a lot of details that you need to fill out. There's a lot of information that you want to collect, and as part of this process, there's a lot of photos that are taken. The photos, and really the core of the company's always looked at photos as just holding a wealth of information that can be utilized. So our thought there is, all right, can these photos, can we pre-populate fields? Can we highlight things that we may not see populated in a form as that data is being collected, to say, hey, can you confirm that this isn't there? But the whole idea is, can we accelerate that process of how much time someone has to spend on site and reduce the amount of things that may be missed? So it's a complementary piece that can just help with the more and more details that are being required as part of some of these new data standards that are coming out. And then so that's the initial part, which is great. But even further down that line, I think there's constant manual review processes going through to say, hey, is all the information correct? Are there any errors? Because we're all human, and you can fat finger something, you can accidentally miss something out. So AI has the ability to quite quickly just flag and say, hey, this looks off, like it needs a closer look. And so once again, it's saying, hey, there's all these things that we want to validate. Can we cut out part of that to really just highlight the things that need an extra set of eyes, and take out a lot of that manual work where maybe a lot of people's skill sets aren't being fully utilized.
And I think, I'm actually going through my mind and thinking of this in terms of just kind of, if nothing else, at the very least, a quality control measure, at the top end, a time-saving efficiency measure. I went out and looked at a house several years ago, and it was I think the third inspection I'd done. It was a crazy hot day. There was a lot going on. And I took pictures of the outside of the house, the inside of the house, and inside the house, there was a solar distribution panel. And in my report, I noted there was a solar distribution panel, but the solar panels had not been installed. And lo and behold, I get a revision request, and the reviewer says, hey, do you want to maybe mention the solar panels? And I said, well, they weren't installed. He goes, do you want to maybe look at the photographs of the back of the house? And I turned to the page, and sure enough, the rear exterior photo, there's a full solar array on the roof, and I just missed it. And from what I'm hearing you say is AI would be one of those things where, your software would be able to pick up on that and say, wait a minute, are these solar panels?
Absolutely. I think that, it's just that extra check to say, like, hey, are you sure? Look at this. And I think these types of processes exist all the time. Think about when you send an email and you try to send it and there's no header. It says, hey, it looks like there's not a header there. This is the same type of process. I think sometimes it's scary because you're saying, oh, it's, what are the implications? But it's really just to help prevent some of these mistakes that are natural and can happen. And the actual analysis of the property, the actual, say adjustments that are made, the actual valuation, like where we think the appraiser is so important, it's allowing them to, spend more time on those elements without having to, go double, triple, quadruple check everything to make sure things that could cause something to be sent back or rejected, may have happened.
I love it. I worked for years, about 23 years, in offices where I would do a report and someone else would review that report. The policy in the offices was no report goes out the door without a second set of eyes on it. I know a lot of residential appraisers these days work by themselves. And again, from a quality control perspective, I think this could be a really useful thing.
Absolutely. It's an extra set of eyes at the, at the very least.
Okay, good. Well, let's take another quick moment to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Did you know that NAN hosts quarterly discussions with our appraisal panel on bias, inclusion, equity, and diversity initiatives that impact the appraisal industry? The topic of bias in the appraisal world will remain at the forefront of legislative, agency, and lender priorities well into the future. At NAN, we believe that intentional bias is only a very small fraction of the underlying issue, and that outdated policies and regulations and unconscious bias are of far greater concern. It's our hope to work closely with the appraiser community as partners in an endeavor to improve processes and procedures and ensure equitable treatment for all valuations. Learn more by visiting nan-amc.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Hal Humphreys. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm joined today by Nathan Brannen. Nathan, where's this going?
So if we talk about, AI, computer vision, where it's going, I see it as an incredible tool to supercharge what we're able to do and to increase the efficiency or the productivity of what we're doing. So, we've touched on some of the examples of how it can help from a quality control perspective, but I think there's also a lot of interesting things we can look at as, all right, what's beyond that? Where can that help? And I think a lot of it's along the same lines as, where can it take out effort that was, used to have to be done manually? So let's think about identifying comparables that you want to use for a particular property. There's people who may, go on Zillow or wherever and have a bunch of tabs open and be clicking back and forth. Well, with computer vision, you could easily say, hey, out of these different properties, let's go ahead and filter these out because the condition analyzed would make them not be applicable comps. That gives us a smaller subset of half a dozen comps without you wasting your time clicking through photos and being like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Further than that, you could say, well, each of these properties has 25 photos, 30 photos. You get confused flipping back and forth looking at all those. Let the AI say, hey, this is the best photo of the kitchen of this property. This is the best photo of the living room. This is the best photo of the primary bath. And just lay those out for each of those comparables to make it really easy to say, okay, well, we're at half a dozen. And now these two really, as we look at it, side by side, they're just, they're not really going to pass the smell test or the sight test. You just immediately don't have a great feeling about it. This process previously, it's what you would have done, but all the time it would have taken would have been in clicking around. The ultimate judgment that you would have made is now just simpler to do because you're just looking at the things that are more relevant. And, what if you say, hey, I don't like the comps that the AI gave? Well, that's fine. Let's widen that search. Let's pull a couple back in. But, anything that you can save from, having to look at or minimize, I think is really valuable to, be able to do the more valuable things. Another example of that, to just build on that, is saying, a ton of these appraisers or a ton, real estate professionals in general, because we do a lot of products that work on the agents. A lot of them are experts in their market. They know so much, but it's really easy to maybe say, hey, this is what I thought, or like, this is the number I have in my head about, let's say the price per square foot in this area. But, what if you just had data that said, hey, here are the trends in this particular neighborhood of how things have changed. And so, this is just data that can be updated in real time because you're looking at these properties across the whole market and you're having, this visual data condensed into a, consumable format to use as a resource to ultimately add that, necessary final, analysis layer to, your process.
I love it. Computer vision, that is the name of the product?
No. So computer vision is the field of AI that are, that we focus on, where we specialize.
Okay.
And the name of the product, we, really focus on integrating within a lot of the existing workflows and applying that, our technology and our solutions to existing, products or existing kind of workflows. Sure. And I think if we were talking about, okay, what's the name of the product or how does it work, it's more, appropriate to focus on, okay, what are the solutions that we offer and how do those fit in? And for that, it would be looking at the data collection. So if there's a mobile inspection app, we layer into that to help pre-populate or, validate after data has been entered to say, hey, there's nothing that looks out of whack before you get back in your car and you head out. You would then have the quality control piece. So given a appraisal form, given an inspection report, given a PDR, a PDC, can we go through that and say, hey, here's where there's mismatches, or here's where we want an extra set of eyes to validate some of this data before it's ultimately submitted and becomes more problematic if there is something that has been, accidentally missed. You would then have that comparables piece of saying, okay, what can we, we like to call it condition adjusted comps, because we think that's a very large element that the computer vision can provide to help just provide a more narrow band or more context across the typical spreadsheet of data you may look at when evaluating comps.
Right.
And then the last piece would be our complexity score. So saying, hey, given a particular property, looking at how it fits into the larger market with regards to the non-photo-based elements like the square footage or the lot size or the number of beds, the number of baths, but then also layering in, okay, what is the condition of this property? How does that compare to the area? Is this going to be a more complex and potentially a higher risk appraisal, or is it looking like, hey, things look quite good? So the common theme of all these is how can we utilize this data and provide that extra context to help with these existing processes and things that people are doing every day.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, Nathan. Jim Morrison, do we by chance have an anonymous appraiser question today?
We do have an anonymous appraiser question, but we kind of already touched on it. So our anonymous appraiser question is, what do you account for a home with solar panels that are less than 3 years old? So we kind of already touched on that. But, I had another question as Nathan was talking that popped up. We're seeing from a lot of appraisers as realtors are getting better with Photoshop, and Photoshop's getting easier for everyone about how they're Photoshopping their images of their homes. Is that something that computer vision would be able to help us with, pointing out like, hey, they've Photoshopped this, power plant out of the background or gotten rid of this dead tree in the front yard, because appraisers are dealing with this. I'm seeing on social media a lot where they're saying, hey, this isn't the house that I looked at.
Right. And that's a great question. And, one of the great things is it's a similar problem on the other side of the fence with, the properties being listed. That's maybe where they're seeing these things. And we do have a solution. We have a compliance kind of suite of products that would look at things like, are there things in the photos that shouldn't be there? So this could be just having people in the photos or, items that may result in an implicit bias, but also has the photo been digitally altered? There's certain things that are being done, and it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game with how quickly this technology is evolving. But we're, of course, always on top of that and trying to be able to identify and catch as much as we can to just minimize, these questions where people are doubting whether what they see in a photo is actually representative of the property that they're evaluating.
Yeah, I saw one where an appraiser was complaining because the realtor had put in a pool and said, oh, there's space for a pool back here, but there was no pool. It was just done digitally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'll let you continue.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say it's crazy times with people altering photos and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I'm thinking that, computer vision looking at raw images is probably, it's not looking at an image the same way we do. It's looking at pixels. It's looking at ones and zeros basically. And part of that data set in a lot of cases is going to be some metadata in the photo.
Absolutely. There's metadata in the photo. There's also things that, as a company, we started looking at one photo at a time and evaluating that photo independently. But really how this industry works is you care about the property. So we actually look at all the photos collectively, and looking at those photos collectively also can help you understand more about the property as a whole and to understand, are there any things that don't add up? Are there things that, partial renovations, or you could have a listing where you have a before and after photo of the same room, being able to understand or flag and say like, hey, this is where we need to take a look at because it just isn't adding up. So, I think it is important to highlight what it is doing. It's looking at photos. It's not doing anything more than kind of what it's being told to do. And I think that helps understand or constrain the problem a bit.
I love it. Nathan, again, thank you for being here. Jim Morrison, do we have anything else we need to cover today?
Yeah, Nathan, we really appreciate you joining us today, and we're looking forward to seeing you at Val Expo, where Restb.ai is going to be our cornhole sponsor for the trade show. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and I think we're excited to have you there.
We're super excited as well. Can't wait.
Awesome. Well, gentle people, I'm Hal Humphreys for Nathan Brannen and Jim Morrison. That is your Appraisal Buzzcast for this week.